Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another live show of Fuente and Meerapfel present Meet the Professor. Hello, everybody.
What's happening? What's happening?
Well, another great day. I hope every one of you is nice and safe, nice and cozy, and ready for a hell of a show because today we've got an interesting topic to discuss with you guys. Very controversial, but interesting. Professor, what's on our plate?
Today is a topic that I consider myself kind of a historian when it comes to wars and tobacco. And this is one that I've been, for many, many years, asked questions about the boom. How did it start? What were the problems? Oh, look what we have here. El Papo del Humo. ¿Qué pasa?
The man himself.
Yes, the one and only, our boss. So today it's going to be a really hot topic. Why the boom? How did it start? All the things that went on. We're not going to get into all the details because probably if we do, we might be on a hit list, me, Carlito, and you. So we'll try to keep it kind of political. ¿Qué pasa, Papo?
We got to keep it politically correct, I think, on this show because these are war crimes, my friend.
That's a good one. So what we hear a lot of people, and I know Carlito's been asked this question. I wish maybe he would have $1 for the foundation every time some people ask about the boom. But it's good for the new generation to hear a little bit about it. We're not going to get into all the details. We're not here to criticize anybody or what happened, but the facts are the facts, and that is reality. So we have to go back in history and look before 1992. I mean, people were making cigars, companies were making, a couple of big companies were making 5 million, 6 million, other companies were making 2 and 3 million. There were people barely surviving, making a couple of 100,000 cigars, and that was their way of living. But what happens? In 1992, a man with a great vision, a man that many people sometimes don't agree with, it's human nature. Marvin Shanken creates a magazine called Cigar Aficionado. And after that, till this day, everything has been history. I mean, 92, already companies like Fuente, General, other companies already were established, were doing well. But then the boom comes, and this magazine comes out with all these celebrities and all that, and everybody wanted more cigars. There was not enough tobacco in the world to make the amount of cigars that people wanted. But we do have to say that there were companies who just kept making the same amount of cigars, kept up with the quality, and are still around. But then 93 came, more demand, more pressure, more pressure. 94 comes, 95 comes. Then in 95, every time Dick and Harry and everybody who was in Wall Street wanted to go down, basically down to Dominican Republic. There was like 60 or 70 different little factories. People would work at Fuente and La Aurora till 3 o'clock. The buses would take them back home. And in Tamboril and Villa Gonzalez and Jacagua, all over, they would be in kitchens. They would be in backyards. They would be in houses. They would be in bars. They would be in restaurants making cigars. But what happened? The quality went down. And we went from a couple of 100,000 cigars, a couple of million cigars that were done a year, to the year of 1997, I think it was 447 million cigars were imported that year. And then 1998 came, and as we say, the shit hit the fan. But to be honest, at that time, I was working in the head of sales for beer, even though I was in the smoking panel and smoking a lot of cigars. But if there's somebody that could give us some light, is El Papo del Humo, Carlos Fuente. Make it politically correct.
No, we'll do our best. We'll do our best. But no, you're absolutely right. But let's go back even before that. The 70s were very, very difficult years for making cigars. There was no certainties of the future. Then comes the 80s. The Dominican Republic starts to grow since the very beginning, the early 80s. And it's like you say, comes the 90s, all of a sudden it's chaos. It really becomes crazy. I remember if we had a guest, there was only one major hotel here, and the guests would stay at the hotel. We had to avoid for people to see us. They would be coming out like with suitcases to wanting to set up a meeting with us, offering anything. I mean, monies were crazy just to see us. So we tried to avoid even the hotels. My father always said that it reminded him of the old cowboy movies, like the California Gold Rush, where somebody they get to, mid across the country, and they're waiting and they're sitting in a bar and they're finding out if there's any information, what's next, what's going on. And it was really, really crazy time. So much so that we lost up to 500 cigar makers. That seems like a hell of a lot, and it is in one given year. People would come in front of our factory. We'll call them like bounty hunters, offering all kind of sign-up bonuses, motorcycles, whatever it is, just to hire our people away. And it was very, very critical times. But to be quite honest with you, I've heard other people say they're glad those days are over. I'm sad those days are over. Because maybe it was because I was 25 years younger, but it was the most exciting times of my life. I felt like that gladiator in the middle of the arena. I remember getting on those buses and going into, walking inside factories, and these new factories, and threatening to go outside and duke it out with the factory owners and things like that. And, those, I'm happy I lived those days. They were very difficult times, times when I didn't sleep. And it was very, very difficult because our greatest resource are human beings. And they were being targeted. We were the only company at that time making Figurado cigars. The Hemingway brand was very, very popular. And of course, there was a big demand for Figurados because there were none available in the market. And those were most of our cigar makers who were sought after and everything. And that was very painful. See something that we built, something so sentimental to me, something so meaningful, just being stripped away little by little. And it became literally, it was a war, it was like the empire of smoke. And those were great times, man. I went through hell and back, but I enjoyed it. I couldn't take it today. It was just that stressful and that intense. But you know what? I'm glad I lived it. It was a great experience. I learned one thing from my father always. We did not increase production. The cigar makers made the same amount of cigars. We were many, many years. Those who are in the industry will remember we would take a sign to the trade show that we weren't opening new accounts. We were loyal to the people who were with us before the boom. And one thing that I learned, that at great sacrifice, principles and integrity pay off big dividends in the long run. And there's a lot of, there's some manufacturers who started during the boom, or were here before the boom, who are still here today, who did things properly. And I just think it's sad that many more did not do the right thing, and there will be more people in our industry. Because I think that I've always believed there's room for everybody. And I was taught that I prefer to have a small piece of a huge pie, or live in just, a small home in a neighborhood, just, with beautiful homes, and the neighborhood just filled with running children and music and happy, than, just have the whole pie myself. Because, I really encourage people to fight hard for our industry, to do things properly. And that was a big learning experience for all of us.
Awesome.
It's really true what Carlito said. And, something is, that's part of the problems. But also we have to understand that everybody wanted cigars. I mean, I remember in the States, the stories that consumers, store owners, people that were just wheeling and dealing would chase the UPS and the FedEx vehicles, offer them money. Who's getting cigars this week? So-and-so is getting. It got to a point that there were people opening up stores that could not get anything from the traditional companies, and they would go to established stores, buy at retail, mark it up a couple of dollars just to stay in business. It was crazy. People would come to DR with like the gold rush, like Carlito said, and they were set up in the hotels, and they would be offering 20, 30, 40 points above whatever the cost was just to bring back suitcases of cigars back. And at that time, you know, there was, thank God, there was no 9/11 at that time. There wasn't that much security. But there were people coming twice a week to Dominican Republic, going to Tamboril, to Villa Gonzalez, to everywhere anybody was making cigars. They didn't care. It was Don Juanito, Don Pepe, Don whatever. There were more Dons in the boom. There were more Dons in the boom than all the story of the mafia. They ran out of names to make Don cigars. Right, Papo?
That's absolutely right. You know, you reminded me of something. Of course, you know, there were people who had friends that worked for FedEx and UPS. And I remember it came to the time we had to change the name or the codes on the shipping list of what was being shipped. Because even before the retailers knew it, there would be people waiting in the front of the stores for them to open a certain box. Consumers already knew what was inside that box. That's how crazy things were. It's absolutely true, man. It was crazy times, but you know, once again, man, they were good times. It was exciting times, challenging times, but I'm I'm fortunate I lived them, and I'm more fortunate yet that I survived them.
Yes, there was, I can't remember who it was, came to me one day and says, what do you think about a t-shirt, Jasper, about a t-shirt that says, I survived the boom as a manufacturer? And I said, I think it's a great idea, but how many people did really survive the boom?
Tell me, Professor, what kind of effect did the boom had on certain things like counterfeits and legal movement of cigars? Why don't you tell the audience a little bit about that now that we're talking about controversy?
You want me to tell you something, and I've never said this publicly. I'm going to take the opportunity. Carlito and I have been friends for many, many years. And when I was head of sales for beer and cigarettes, I would travel the whole country. And I remember in Bávaro that I walk into this shop and I started to see all these cigars, basically all Cubans, but out of the Dominican, the brand that stood out the most was Fuente. And I see this bundle with the ad of the Don Carlos and Carlito at Chateau de la Fuente. And they did this this huge page, and they had fake Opus bands. And I remember that I bought it, and I remember Carlito and I met in my old house, and I called him, and he went there, and then there was some other Fuentes with the green band on it. And Carlito asked me, how much do I owe you? And I remember these words: the only thing I ask is for your friendship. And it's been a long friendship. But the Fuente brand in Dominican Republic was hit so hard that there were tourists buying those fake cigars, bringing them back to the States, and it was a mess. And I think that Carlito could talk, because outside of the Cubans, we got to be honest, the brand that was most faked and made in Dominican Republic was anything with Opus. They made sizes of the Hemingway that nobody had ever seen in their lives. They would make them out of anything. And it was a big challenge, and it was a lot of fighting. And I know that Carlito, especially Don Carlos, and a lot of people brought them fake cigars. It was very hard, because when you work on quality and all of a sudden people take advantage of that. And the worst thing was that when people would bring that back to the States and to Europe, they would see that, because we got to be honest, cigar smokers, they're great and all that, but sometimes they cannot really distinguish. So I think that was like taking a knife and sticking it to Don Carlos and also to Carlito. And on the Opus case, I think he almost had a heart attack, but I don't remember.
Yeah, they were. It was very difficult. It still is. We still have the problem. It's all around, and a lot of times, we choose not to promote the problem because then we don't want to encourage other people, also to become involved in counterfeits and so forth. So, but it's sad because a country that's known for cigars, it's beautiful beaches and people with smiles everywhere. This is the happiest country in the world, and I've been told this by so many people from nations all over the world. It's very difficult to go to any quarter and not see someone smiling. And I've said many times, you may see many children without shoes in this country, but I'm yet to see the first Dominican child without a smile. This is a happy country. And it's number one with tourism in all the Caribbean. So what happens is that a lot of people who are not knowledgeable on cigars would come visit, and their friends back home would say, hey, you're going to Dominican Republic. Bring me back such and such a cigar. And where do they go? They go to the tourist attractions. They go to to the contained area, the beaches and so forth. And this is where most of the counterfeits were always found and so forth. And it was a serious problem. But fortunately, the difference was so big that people who really knew were contacted to tell us the situation was going on. And listen, we went through all kind of private detective agencies, through the government. The Tobacco Institute here assisted us. It was very, very difficult. And you stop one, it's like picking weeds in your yard. Stop one and another one will start growing behind you. Very, very difficult. I think now people are very much more conscious of the responsibility it is to protect the brands that represent their country. I think people are now much more their guardians, and the government is definitely doing as much as possible, because let's face it, we have counterfeiting everywhere around the world, as much as possible. And even with the Hublot, with the Fuente watch, I was shocked when I see these replicas. People knock them off. So it's like everything else. It's very, very painful. We got to make the best cigars we possibly can. Face each situation as they arise. It's like a fire. There's a fire, you put it out, and just be as transparent and as open as possible. It's very painful. I'm not going to deny it. It's something that we face every day, and the pain doesn't go away. We just resolve one problem at a time and just pray that this is reduced to a minimum, that doesn't really affect us, but most importantly, not us. We're going to sell as many cigars as we make. We make handmade products, and we're way oversold. It's going to affect the people we love, our customers, who have put their faith in us, who we never want to disappoint. And that is the most painful of all.
Wow. No, this is...
I think I touched a nerve. I might get a pink slip tomorrow.
No, not at all.
Before that pink slip comes anywhere.
Not at all. That's what this show is about, is being transparent, about being honest. It's about a family sitting on a table and sharing each other's stories, and want the consumer, the people who love cigars, regardless of the brand they enjoy, to understand that we're human beings, that, we go through blood, sweat, and tears. We celebrate with you. We enjoy the same things you enjoy, and that we're all one family. And that is anything that is my goal to accomplish with the show, is that we are all one. We're one family. We enjoy the finer things in life, and we just want to spread the love and share the happiness.
Wow. Let's bring it on to the family member with a green shirt, because she's got something on Melanie's hot spot.
What? I got a new shirt on. Did you see me?
Looking good, Melanie.
Hey, I want to know something. Maybe I live too far from Tampa, Florida, but why don't I have one? green is my color. When I see green, I see Fuente.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Well, then I might have to, like, I don't know. I feel pretty special wearing this shirt, so we might have to call in and see if we can get one too.
For sure, for sure.
But no, so I don't see very many questions right now, but I know that we were having some questions, and I know one of them was to find real Fuentes outside of Santa Domingo. Is that something that's
Yes. No, today, Melanie, today things have really changed. You have very, very fine, state-of-the-art tobacconists all through the country in major cities. Santo Domingo, you have many, many fine tobacconists. Of course, we have our Dura Fuente Cigar Club that many claim is one of those beautiful clubs and sophisticated and very, very special place. But there are many, many lounges in Santo Domingo, in Santiago, some beautiful places also, many places to enjoy cigars, Puerto Plata. There's cigar clubs everywhere. Today, listen, one thing that is in the 40 years that I've been here, just to give you a comparison, 40 years ago, I would leave the factory and I would have one cigar in my left pocket. And 40 years ago, things you change in 40 years, to say the least. I remember leaving with my Calvin Klein 30 waist, and I never wore a long sleeve shirt. I used to wear my T-shirts, but 2 sizes too tight, and the sleeve rolled up and everything. And I remember walking out and people looking at me and staring at me, and girls making fun of me, ladies saying, "Such a good-looking man, what a waste with that cigar," and so forth. That's 40 years ago. Today in the Dominican Republic, you cannot go to a wedding where you don't see everyone celebrating with cigars. You cannot go to a celebration where you don't see everyone enjoying cigars. And I mean, people are enjoying cigars from the very top end of society, all the way to cigar makers and their families and everything. Cigars are now part of a culture. And if anything has really changed in this world, cigars, the Dominican Republic is very, very proud and understand what cigars contribute to the image of the country, and that this country is known for cigars, and they're very, very proud of it. So it's completely changed in that aspect.
It's funny you mentioned that, Carlito, because last night I was doing a live on Instagram with about 100 guys from basically Dominican and some Spaniards turned in. And I've always said during many years that when I was growing up as a kid, nobody at my age that was smoking cigarettes, Monte Carlo, Moro, Nacional, but hardly you would ever see. So I would see my dad and, the old rollers smoking cigars. But today, these guys with these clubs in Santo Domingo and San Francisco and Puerto Plata, I mean, these guys are on social media. They're into these live chats. They're smoking all types of cigars. They're really knowledgeable. Last night, we were supposed to go an hour. They wanted half an hour more, and I did it. And it's surprising the questions that they brought up. It's like very on point questions about tobacco, about the brands. Last night, of course, we were talking about Fuente, but they brought up different questions about wrappers and things like that and the consistency of all that. So like you say, 40 years ago, they look at you weird. Today, if you go out without a cigar, they're going to say, what, Carlito doesn't have a cigar in his pocket?
No, what they're going to say is, oh, man, that guy's missing something out of life. He doesn't know how to live life to the fullest. I mean, seriously, we have clubs, asking us to visit Chateau La Fuente. We've had the BMW Club, 40 BMWs come move, all cigar smokers. We've had the Harley Davidson Club, the Porsche Carrera Club. You see 40 Porsches coming into Chateau de la Fuente doing photo shoots. It's incredible. But one thing that I am so happy with and I'm so proud of is that it's not only men, it's men and women. Men and women, young, beautiful men, good-looking men, and good-looking women, beautiful women enjoying cigars. And they're proud of it. They're proud of it. They're enjoying the finer things of life. And being in the cigar industry, there's nothing that makes me happier than see people enjoying a product that you give your heart and soul into making to bring smiles to people. And I think that's the greatest blessing in the last 40 years, to see the transformation of how cigars are available and enjoyed by so many people from all walks of life. And like Jose, you stressed over and over again, it doesn't matter if it's the person that's driving, you know, the Rolls Royce, or he's the gentleman driving the taxi, or he's the one that's selling fruit on a bicycle. He could in one moment of his life enjoy a cigar. And that's one thing, that there's never any barriers between two people who meet in a park bench and are both smoking cigars. I guarantee you the conversation will be the most interesting conversation of the day. Cigars are magical in that aspect.
I agree 100%. You know, cigar smoking, I mean, during all my years, and you also, and Jeremiah, how many people have we met? We've met celebrities, doctors, CEOs. Well, we've met that regular guy that's there just, you know, just wanting to take a photo, light up a cigar, tell us his experience with the brand. And sometimes we're doing an event for this company, and all of a sudden he's talking about another one. We're not going to cut him off. We want to know what makes him tick, and maybe ask him, have you ever tried one of our cigars? So that's the great thing about it. And, you know, when we do these events, sometimes the guy that gets the most laughs and the guy who's the most charismatic, funny, is probably the guy that has the lowest income, because he's not maybe so stuck up as some other people. I've had events that some of these guys just drive me crazy when I say, what is that guy? Well, that's Ray from Arizona. He cleans rugs and things like that. Oh, who's that? Oh yeah, he's a short chef at an IHOP or something like that. So it's amazing the kind of people that you meet. It's very unique. You're laughing.
I agree with you, and I think it's one of the things why we're all around this table today and every day during this confinement, is because people understand that, and they respect cigars bringing people together, no matter who you are, what you are. That's besides the point. You're a cigar lover, you have a heart, you have a soul, and that's the most important thing in the world. Whether it's for you, whether it's for Carlito, whether it's for myself, that is the most important thing in the world. There's a beautiful question that just came in from Alex. Melanie, you want to read it out?
Sure. So Carlito, could you talk more about the tough days before the boom and how you kept passionate and inspired during the harder days?
Well, I started actually working full-time with my father in 1972, way before you were born, Melanie. And yes, they were difficult days. I actually remember my father sitting in the office and telling Ramona, who was his right hand, his secretary's assistant, to call certain accounts to see if they would pay a little earlier, because he was trying just to make payroll. And you know, the cigar industry back then, it was very, very difficult days. It was days in the 70s when factories were from making cigars by hand. There were no longer any hand makers in Ybor City. They were older, they were retiring. So I remember those difficult days and times of the year where you build your business up with something new, and it grows, and you think that you're in a position that you're secure. And then all of a sudden inflation was around 20%, 20-something%. I mean, the interest rates were 18% back then. I remember the days in those 70s. And you know, you have to increase your cigar by 5 cents and you end up losing 40% of your business. It was so price conscious and sensitive. They were very, very difficult days. And we were in Nicaragua that time. We lost a factory in the revolution. It was completely burned down. It's hard to believe, but there were only 4 factories in Esteli when the revolution took place. And today there's hundreds. But back in the 70s, and you know, we went to Honduras for a short time. There was another fire, it was an accidental fire. And from there, you know, we went to the Dominican Republic, because the Dominican Republic all of a sudden had the infrastructure for free zone, and they were allowing foreign investment, because before coming to the Dominican Republic, my father, his first choice was the Dominican Republic because of the culture, because it reminded him so much of Cuba, because of, you know, just the people. It was an easy move. It was an easy adjustment for us. But at that time, in 1970, when he first came here, the end of the 60s, we had just gone through a revolution in the Dominican Republic. The Marines were here in 1965. There wasn't that there wasn't that infrastructure yet for free zones and so forth. So it became very difficult, and the opportunity came up in Nicaragua, which was supposed to be the safest place where you could have foreign investment, because Somoza, who was a dictator, president, general, so to speak, is a graduate of West Point. His wife was from Tampa, Florida. But anyway, long story short, we're here in the Dominican Republic, and started almost, you know, with all just dreams and hopes. And when you're young, you know, you're full of piss and vinegar. And my father was young because my father was only 18 years, 11 months and 3 weeks older than me. That's hard to believe, but that my father was not only my father, he was my mentor, my best friend. We were very, very close. And since we had nothing, we had nowhere to go but up. And literally we worked around the clock, little by little, and just started doing things. And by 1983, all of a sudden things really took off when the introduction of Hemingway. We started making cigars with my grandfather's old molds and doing things differently. And I think that's why I believe in so much in not following someone else's footsteps that has already been successful, because then you always will be a follower instead of a leader. I think Hemingway was a great lesson for me to do things differently than what was being done in the industry. And it really opened a new mindset for me to start doing things differently. And we started to really grow. And in the 80s, I mean, we grew to, you know, things were just unbelievable. And then comes the boom and everything. We were in a very strong position in the boom. We had a lot of inventory. My father always invested in tobacco. You know, and then it was that crazy time and everything. And we made a very wise decision during the boom. It's just, you know, we worked overtime. We worked at night. We used to bring the people food and things like that to try to supply our customers. But we did not really increase production by leaps and bounds, or we tried to, and we were not able to, because we were losing cigar makers left and right, going, you know, venturing off to other factories and everything. But today it's a totally different world. You know, before this isolation of the virus, I think the company has never, in the history of the company, been as stable, as secure, doing the things that we're doing are very exciting. We keep pushing the envelope, moving forward, doing things. We achieve certain goals, and then we just move that goalpost and go for the next goal. And we put together such an amazing team of people. This is no longer the father and son team. This is a big team of professionals, but professionals who have the heart and soul of family and understand what it means to work in a family company. And that is, if the floor is dirty, there's a piece of paper, you pick it up. It doesn't matter if you're the CEO, CFO. I mean, everybody gets involved, everybody works, everybody has one goal: to give the best product humanly possible, protect the brand, and we have one goal in life, and that's to win as a team.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I think that Alex should be happy with this one. He didn't try to trick me today.
Yeah, that would have been a Neil the Professor question right there. We have a very good question that came in from Dimitri, and with Melanie's permission, I'd like to get him on the line here. Dimitri,
Absolutely.
Can you hear us?
Loud and clear, Jeremiah.
Well, first of all, Dimitri, I would like to congratulate you. I actually had Dimitri on the line earlier today. Dimitri lives in Belgium, and he called me up. May I have your permission to say this anecdote, Dimitri?
Yeah, sure.
All right. Well, listen, I think I should because it's important. So Dimitri calls me up and says, listen, my company is in food produce, and we have a lot of food that we'd like to give out to people in need. Can you think of anybody? You're very connected with the hospitals, with many companies around the country. Could you help us get these food produces out to everybody out there? So Dimitris, in the name of everybody in need and everybody who has a heart and everybody who cares, I'd like to thank you, because it's thanks to people like you that differences are made. And before you shoot your question, I think it was important that I pay this tribute to you and to your company. Now, shoot the question, brother.
Yeah.
One of the things I would like to know, Carlito, is if you see the price on some products on the internet going twice or triple the market sales price, what does that do with you? Are you upset? Are you angry? Do you think you have to charge more? How does it feel to you?
Dimitri, how are you? And thank you again for your big heart and your contribution and everything to those in need. Of course, it breaks my heart. Of course, it's something that for years and years and years we've been fighting, trying to police and so forth. But what happens is that you have customers, you have a customer list that you build a relationship, and we are very, very cautious to open new customers because of our shortages. But we also have to be in certain areas, because if you're not, then you're going to have counterfeits, and you have to have the legitimate product if you're going to be a reputable and pure brand. You have to have product on the market. It's very, very difficult. What happens is that people actually go to these retailers who are our customers. They buy the cigars at full retail or with a small discount if they're allowed to give it to them. Then they go out and they sell it to someone else who doubles the price. And it is very, very difficult. And I don't even know what, especially in the United States, it's illegal to control prices. We try our very, very best to protect our brick and mortar accounts, which to me is the most important thing. I'm a small family business. I consider us a small family business. And I believe that it's those small family business that don't have a clock to punch, that work around the clock when necessary, that are there to give you that personal service. I believe they are the fiber of what makes industry, what makes this world tick, what makes this world go around. And that is my belief, because I came from a little wooden house with a tin roof. My grandfather made cigars, and the factory was just right behind it. And I believe in giving people opportunity, and I believe in small businesses. So we do the best we can, but there's certain things that is impossible for us to have total control of. I think that a consumer, like any luxury product, if a consumer is willing to pay for it, I feel really bad that some do, but they're the ones that are, if they refuse to pay for it, then those prices will not be sold at those prices. Somebody is buying them, or to someone that has value, and it's something that I scratch my head, but it's impossible for us or anyone to really have complete control of that or police in a certain way. It happens when a product is in such high demand and people don't find them. And that's why it's so important to get the distribution out to the right tobacconists, to the right smoke shops, people who cater to people who know what they want, who want the very best, who are legitimate. So we could reduce the situation of this so-called gray market, because that's what it is. It's not a black market. It's kind of like a gray market. And it's very painful. You're absolutely right, Dimitri. It's painful. And it's something that I hope that we could reduce with the effort of everyone involved. And thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dimitri. That was an excellent question, and it's a very hot topic. It's very complicated, as you heard Carlito say. When a product is in demand at that level, it is very, 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 very complicated to control what's being done later on. As you all know, many of the Fuente products are made in very limited amounts, and when they go out into the pipeline, certain things may happen at a certain time. Some people might make mistakes and try to take advantage of the situation, but in all cases, it reflects the unfortunate situation where there's only so much tobacco and there's only so much rollers. And you've all heard it before, Fuente never rushes the hands of time. Right, Professor?
That is true. And you know what, the comment that Carlito says is something that we talk about. It's really hard when you see somebody buying X product from us. And I've seen things on social media, people complaining, but what can you really do when somebody's paying the double? It's good in a way because it's a product sought out all over the world, but it breaks your heart when, some of these people are even making more money than what the company's really making.
No,
and if you look at it,
there's no doubt about that. That's for sure. That I could vouch to.
So when you see that, like Carlito says, you scratch your head, and when we all meet the sales team, we look at each other like, what could happen? It's like some of these people, to be honest, there's a group of people that have made a living out of buying up Fuente product. It doesn't matter where it is. They'll pay whatever it is and just hold it on for a year and a half. And something that's maybe for $20, they're going to make $20 on it, $25 on it. So, I mean, there is no way you can control it, but shit happens.
I remember, and you're absolutely right, Professor. I remember one of my favorite steakhouses in Tampa when I was able to spend more time in my hometown, and I was traveling between the Dominican Republic back and forth. It was in the middle of the boom. And it was a time where Fuente Opus X might have only been in a total of 75 accounts in the country. So I go to my favorite steakhouse where they have the lockers of the wines, of all the big celebrities, of ball players, and all.
Whoa.
All humidor. And then there's Steve Fuente Opus X. And say, how is this possible? Oh my God, I love it. Sorry. 1 second. I'm right back. I just ran out of time. Hold on 1 second. Hold on. That's the problem when you're in the Dominican Republic.
Ping! It's time to pay.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
Now you can see that we're a legitimate outfit.
Wait. Hold. Hey, the pain is sacrifice. That's the problem for being at home base in the Caribbean island of the Dominican Republic. I'm in the middle of my conversation, and my phone, I ran out of time. So I'm here in my homemade little studio. So it's bear with me. But anyway, I'm in this restaurant, and I see in their wall humidor they have Fuente Opus X, and that drove me crazy. I was ready to really. I was calling the head salesman. I was going to kill somebody. I mean, my father used to say, for me to give someone an Opus X back then, it was easier for him to pull a tooth out of his German Shepherd. And I respected that German Shepherd. And you remember the German Shepherd. It was a gift from your father to my father.
I remember.
That's how sensitive and protective I was of these little Opus X. They were my babies. And I remember inquiring and everything. And I found out that the owner of the restaurant had a friend who had a Harley Davidson. And he traveled around Florida. He was retired. And he would pay him double or whatever he paid for a box of Opus X of any account in Florida. So legally, how do you stop that? And those are the things that was in the very, very beginning of, and those are the things that, we face.
I think there's a certain logic in this. I think any industry in the world, when there's a lot of rarity, people will speculate, and it's part of our industry as well. When you look at the wine industry, or you look at, I think, any industry where there's scarcity, the collector car industry, people will buy it for their own pleasure, but they may speculate. And that's something which nobody can control.
But the big difference is that in the car industry, or maybe the high-end jewelry industry, there's only a certain amount of people that could afford to pay twice as much. But anyone across this world could afford to pay twice as much for one cigar, and
That's
to
right.
have that experience. And a cigar, no matter what, when you think of the pleasure, let me just, for an example, you go to a bar anywhere, a real nice bar, and you order a scotch. And first of all, I hope it's not Europe, because you're in Europe, you're not going to want to go back and ask for a drink, because the way they pour in Europe is not the way we pour in the United States to begin with. But when you think about what you pay for something, a finger, we're don't forget, we're like cowboys. We pour like this. And in Europe, they pour like this. And and you think about what you pay for a whiskey, a scotch, or whatever it is, and 2 zips is gone. A cigar, you could be 2-3 hours enjoying yourself, 2 hours conversation. And when you think the value that you perceive and receive from a cigar, it's one of the most affordable pleasures that man has in life, man or woman have in life. It's an affordable pleasure. And that's why you see a lot of people getting away with what's very sad, like price gouging and so forth, because it is still affordable. No matter what, it is to me the most affordable luxury that you can have in life is a fine cigar.
I agree with you, and I think our audience agrees with us as well. We got some messages that came in. I want to read them out because they're good. A message that came in from Fabian. He says, something you consume should not be under speculation. And then right after that, we got one coming in from Dimi saying, let them all go collect mail stamps. Cigars are made to smoke. And I actually agree with you. There's nothing like smoking a cigar. Stop speculating. Start smoking.
Enjoy your
I've always said cigars are made to be enjoyed, not to be saved. And I had the conversation with a lot of friends, and I've been repeated on that. Cigars are meant to be enjoyed, not saved.
I agree. It's funny. A lot of people don't know this, but people come to my house and they go straight for the humidor. And they open the humidor and the humidor is empty. And they're under shock. They're like, but how is this possible that this guy has an empty humidor? Where are the cigars? I said, I smoked them.
That's great.
We look, cigars, to be honest, they're made to smoke, but we have to also consider you have people all over the world that are big time cigar collectors. And now that I'm really involved 100% to Fuente, and I'm seeing all these Fuente groups and clubs and all that, I'm seeing stuff that I asked Carlito the other day about some things, and Carlito's answer was to me, Jose, to be honest, I don't even remember what you're talking about, because we made a lot of these limited editions, to be honest. And even when I would go visit or be with Carlito, in all honesty, I never asked him for anything special. And I know he would have given it to me with todo el cariño, but I wouldn't do that because I know that's something that could go to a charity or to go to a store. Even when I was in the stores, people said, this came out from Fuente, this and that. If it was on, I pick it up, but never an Opus or anything like that, because it's so hard to get them. And I know that another person, customer of that shop would enjoy it just as I would, but I've been shocked with all these things. And probably when I go to the factory, when we're able to travel, I'm going to have to go into that humidor when Carlito's not looking and at least pick up a couple of those things that are very unique, because I want a taste of history also.
Make sure you take the 6 keys for the 6 padlocks, because if not, you're not going to get past the front door.
We got a question coming in from Rich. This one is to you, Carlito. He says, do you remember the Arturo Fuente Palmas 26 made in Tampa? I've had an empty box for decades.
Hey, do I ever remember the Arturo Fuente Palmas 26? I remember the Arturo Fuente Cazadora Deluxe. I remember all the Arturo Fuentes. I worked it. I actually made them for a short time. And, of course, I remember Palmas 26. You know why it was called Palmas 26? Because the most popular cigar made at that time, long filler, was 6x42. And that's what they called the Palma shape in Odibor City in Tampa. And it was sold for 26 cents. And I remember that during the inflation, when someone asked earlier about difficult times, when that cigar went up for 55 cents, we lost 40% of the business. And, you know, seriously. And that was a long filler cigar. It was made with a Mexican Sumatra wrapper, but it was completely long filler, made with tobaccos from Honduras and the Dominican Republic, and you know, and different binders, so forth. And you know, I remember the time I could see the box exactly. I remember the old box that had just a metal coin with a ribbon. And I remember the first label that I made was in 1972, 73, was when I started converting that label and adding coins to it and so forth. And that's the beginning. That's when, you know, that's when I really started getting involved in the transformation of coming out with new sides and so forth. And not many years after that is when the 858 was actually introduced as a very, very limited production cigar. It was a cigar that my father always had in his pocket, and it was a cigar in honor of my grandfather. And that's where, you know, the new era of Fuente starts growing at that time.
Wow. Well, a bit of behind the scenes there from Carlito Fuente. But it's that time of the day, ladies and gentlemen. It's time for Benoit's Baked. Benoit, are you with us?
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hello. What's up?
All right.
Everything is okay?
You make sure that you keep those jokes on the soft side, yeah?
All right. So, ready? Everybody heard me?
Yes.
Yes.
We're with you, Benoit.
So, let's go. So, it's about a rabbit today. A rabbit walks into the wood. Then I hear some noise. So, what kind of noise is it? Someone is crying in the wood. So he come a little bit closer, and he see a bear. A bear was busy pooping in the woods. Pooping, je le dis bien, Jérémia?
Yeah, pooping. Pooping.
Pooping.
Pooping.
We know what pooping is.
Yeah, okay.
So he come closer to the bear, and the rabbit say, "Hello, Mr. Bear. Why are you so angry?" So after the bear is done, he turns to the rabbit and says, "Do you have a problem with shit sticking to your fur?" So the rabbit looks the bear and say, "No, I've never had a problem with that." So the bear smiles and say, "Okay, good," and picks up the rabbit and wraps his butt with him. That's it. All right.
Thank you very much, Benoit. You are insane.
My pleasure, you know.
All right. Good luck with those meals that you're preparing for the hospital. I know you guys are very busy. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Stay out of the woods.
We will serve 3,000 eggs today. So we're gonna make a big omelette for the hospital.
Oh, wonderful.
3,000 eggs.
Good job, my friend. Very good.
So see you tomorrow. Bye, everybody.
We'll see you tomorrow for the show with our special guests. Melanie?
We have Angela Yu coming to visit us tomorrow. Very exciting to learn all about her adventures.
All right. Well, listen, tomorrow's a big day. Angela Yu is going to be guest of honor on our show. She is a huge personality. She is an even huger, or however you would say it, a bigger personality. She's a bigger musician. She's a lovely woman. She is a beautiful soul. She's a friend of the Fuente family and of myself and of Jose. And it's going to be a blast having her on the show tomorrow. Back to you, Professor.
You know, Carlito mentioned palmas and all the different tobaccos. And we didn't finish our program the other day about talking about different wrappers, which we only did the Cameroon, the broadleaf, and Havana and Sumatra. But during the week, we're going to bring up some interesting tobaccos that I've worked with, and Carlito also, that people don't mention so much, that in those days were not so popular. So, you know, tobaccos from Brazil, Matafina, Arapiraca, Matanorte, Mexican San Andres, Mexican Sumatra, tobaccos from Indonesia. So that's going to be for another day, because that also goes to relate that in the boom, every tobacco in the world, anybody who was growing tobacco, it didn't matter if it was in Kalamazoo, Michigan, or who knows, Uganda or South Africa. People were sending samples of tobacco to every manufacturer. And to be honest, the guys who got started to getting into the business, they were buying and using anything they could find. So that's going to be also interesting on that. And I know that Carlito's going to have a lot of comments about probably tobaccos that you've never heard of, that samples were sent to Fuente. And I think that Don Carlos and Carlito would write a letter. We appreciate the samples, but we're going to take a pass on that one.
Not only from different origins, from parts of the world that tobacco was never traditionally grown, but I remember here in the Dominican Republic, the government being concerned there was going to be a lack of food, because people were plowing in food. Our resources of energy are food to grow tobacco in many areas, that without checking the pH of the soil and everything, because tobacco is very important to zoning. There has been so many tests. Tobacco, there's only certain areas which has been proven appropriate for growing tobacco. Of course, I have no doubt there are areas that are appropriate and can grow incredible tobacco that's still yet to be discovered. I always think, why Santiago? Why the big boom in Santiago? Why did the industry grow in Santiago and so forth? Well, it was the city. It had the conveniences and all the tobacco growing around the city. But there are places in the world, and this country still, that are very difficult to get to, that I guarantee you grow some tobacco that's amazing. I remember we talked about our mentor, one of my mentors, Don Angel Oliva. He always said, tobacco is grown in the most difficult places and the ugliest places to you, the less convenient places. If you see a place that's really that beautiful and is close to the hotels and everything, that's not the place to grow good tobacco. And those were the words of a pioneer.
Unfortunately,
they had to go through hell and back to be able to find those special soils. But yeah, during the boom, it was crazy. They were growing tobacco everywhere in this country, and even sacrificing growing food to grow tobacco. It was just incredible.
It's funny you mentioned that, because in Moca, that we all know grows a lot of yuca and plátano. That was a big worry for the government, because people had just knocked down all those platanales, and where all the yuca was being, planted to try to grow tobacco. It was crazy. It's we still have a lot to talk about that. It's going to be for another day, because there's a lot of things we want people to really know, because at the end of the day, we got to be honest about it. It's about consistency. It's about quality. It's about tradition. It's about the integrity also. And we're not going to talk about the mistakes that other people made, because I think a lot of people learned a lot of lessons from that. But one thing I can assure you, and I've said it on this show many, many times, people ask me all over the world, what's the main thing, one word? I said, it's actually 3 words: consistency, consistency, consistency. To me, in any type of business, but more in the cigar industry than anything else, it's all about consistency.
Absolutely. Quality means everything. They want to know that when they're going in to buy something, that they're going to get exactly what they're expecting.
well, we all understand that that's right. And at the end of the day, it all boils down to one thing. That one thing that Carlito Fuente said his entire life, that it's not about the cigars, but it's about the people. That is what gets behind every single subject and word and value which the professor has just spoken about. Now, ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, I don't think we're ever going to get this show wrapped up into the 45-minute slot that we have. but it's that time of the day. We've passed the hour again. Remember to log on tomorrow, same place, same time. We have a hell of a guest of honor. Her name is Angela Yu. It's going to be a big show. We're waiting for a lot of people to log on, a lot of questions. It's going to be a hell of a time together. In the meantime, take care of yourselves. Take care of others. Be safe, and talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.